I did not. I was waiting to see if somebody would pick up on that. Funny story. In that bag, I had my Leatherman tool, which is a cheap knockoff, but it's one of those tools that's multi-purpose, so when you're doing a conference and things, and you find, I need something to do this, that, you take it out and it does it. And I hadn't looked through that bag, that ditty bag, since the last conference. So I just throw it in my carry-on. I go through TSA in Boston, bing, 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 bing. They take my bag and they put it over, and a nice young TSA agent comes over, sir, is this yours? Yeah, it is. You got anything sharp in there? No, because I had taken the scissors and intentionally put them in my check bag, so I'm so proud of myself. I don't have anything sharp in there. This ain't my first travel. So they bring it over to the screening, and she pulls up the x-ray from the conveyor belt, and the machine, through artificial intelligence, finds a corner, and there's something there that, I don't know, sent a signal or something. So this TSA agent opens my bag, reaches right in there, pulls out the bag with all of the goodies, reaches to the bottom, pulls out the Leatherman and says, "That's not sharp?"
Thank you for donating.
Yeah, so, and then she says, that can't go on the plane. I said, no, you're right, that can't go on the plane. I don't know how it got there. So the next question was, well, do you want to go and bring it and check your bag at the airline counter, or do you want to make a donation and move on? I said, you can keep it. So, but thank you, Michelle, for proving that you caught it. You were listening. So, Casey and I are going to be talking about our train grant, and I shared with you prior to Brittany talking about how NAFTA had in its strategic plan the objective of increasing our involvement on a national level, but also being involved in grants and addressing those topics of interest to NAFTA members. And if you've been with NAFTA long enough now, you'll know that, how many years ago did we do FILE, Casey? 4 or 5. 4 years ago, we embarked on, I think it might be 5, the FILE project, the Firefighter Immersive Learning Environment, where we went, NAFTA, along with the Fire Protection Research Foundation. Casey was a researcher working with me on behalf of NAFTA. And we went and we did a lot of work on trying to understand what does the fire service think about immersive learning technology and tools for training. Now, one of the challenges I have in my current role is I get invited to attend a lot of technology discussions and a lot of where they're talking about how can we leverage technology for the fire service. I'll be honest with you, the only places I've heard about it being utilized for training is at NAFTA conferences. When I go to the large national conferences and they're talking about the application of technology, they're talking about AI, they're talking about RMSs, record management systems, they're talking about accountability and locators. They're not talking about the tools that we need to do our job. For whatever reason, that does not seem to resonate on their radar screen. So we were very pleased to be able to pick up that mantle and to run with it. We completed the FILE project. We developed a really good understanding from our perspective of what not only the academy directors, and Casey will share with you the SWOT analysis that provides a good overview, but the people who work with the tools in your academies, what did they think about these tools? And you saw the statement from Brittany about immersive learning involving more than 2 senses, 2 or more senses. Casey, can you talk about where we got that from?
We got that in Utah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was when we visited your academy, Brad, and I'm trying to remember his name, but he was spot on with his comments. He was the tech guy.
He was the tech guy.
And but we took a bunch of things from him. We've been listening to you all. You're going to see a lot of stuff here that has your comments embedded here. There's been a lot of synthesis going on with the material. But it's here as tools for you and to serve you and to try to move the needle on this whole immersive learning technology issue.
And on that point, it was myself, Casey, Shirini from the Fire Protection Research Foundation at Utah, and your tech guy was bringing us out to the drill yard to show us some of your immersive learning props. And we were like kids in candy stores because you got the trailers, you got the simulators, you got the driving and the incident command and the SCBA. So this is great. And we're just sitting around talking and saying, you know, we're trying to define immersive learning so that the fire service and the training directors can get a definition around it that makes sense. Because if you get too technical, people won't buy into it. If you get too educational and academic, they're going to be turned off by that as well. So we need something in the middle. And this gentleman looked at us and said, well, that's easy. It's anytime you engage more than 2 senses. That's immersive. We all went, duh.
And the important sub-message here is we're doing a lot of this already. I mean, immersive learning is not new.
No.
Real fire training is not new. It's, you know, that's immersive learning.
And Brittany talked about the value of hands-on and talked about how the volunteers indicated it's got to be good training, it's got to engage us, and you got to be prepared for it. Well, if you think live fire burn is immersive learning, doing a live fire burn, doing a ladder bailout is immersive learning, doing a roof ventilation drill is immersive learning. It requires zero technology except for what you already have. So we walked away with this understanding, and it really reframed our thinking coming into this project, that immersive learning was being used correctly, but as we talk about leveraging technology to enhance immersive learning, that's the next generation discussion we have to have. What we want to share with you today, we want to share with you two, really, we think this is groundbreaking information, to be quite honest with you. The first, we're going to be talking about, we refer to as the rubric. The rubric is a tool that was designed, and Dr. Kate Kapalo is on the call listening today, who designed this, and I'll be presenting it on her behalf. The rubric is designed to give the training directors and your staff the ability to analyze for a particular skill or competency, what level do we need to demonstrate competency at? We, as a project team, came to the belief so much training is designed to teach a student at a very narrow point of entry in their career. That's great for that student in that 1 to 3 year range, but when you get to the 3 to 5 year range in the career, do you still need the same educational approach as a probationary firefighter? You need to upgrade the knowledge and maybe increase some more skills and more critical thinking and introducing more scenario-based training to engage them to respond. But what about when you go to the executive fire officer or the executive officer level? So this tool recognizes that firefighters need to embark on a career-long journey of education and training, and identifies those critical points. The next thing is, it looks at some broad categories of competencies, they're very broad, that should be present in all training evolutions, talking about things like safety and awareness of your situation and whatnot. And then it further utilizes the premise of the job performance requirements in Bloom's taxonomy to describe demonstrable behaviors of the student trying to perform the skill to help you understand if they're mastering it at the level you expect. So that may resonate with our training and curriculum development folks, because you do that all the time, piece of cake. However, who else is supposed to use the rubric, Casey?
The vendors, the product and program providers. And so this is where we're really trying to pull everybody together here. Maybe we need to shout so they can hear us next door if they're not in the room. Well, I mean, this really applies to the entire ecosystem.
Excuse me. Caroline, could you go ask all the vendors to come in for this part of the presentation, please? Because we need their feedback in that. So while they're waiting, this document, this rubric, if you've worked with a technology developer, and where's Sam, my man Sam, working with Sam on developing some training materials for an NFPA project that NAFTE was part of, it was always about what story are you trying to tell? And what do you want the outcome of that story to be? Now, in my mind, oh, a firefighter's got to show up, he's got to do this, he's got to do that. And they say, yeah, but what does he need to do? What are the steps? Because they have to take that and they have to program those steps, that journey, that storyboard, they have to code it. They have to be able to have the training tool either create that, or the training tool has to be able to survey that and monitor it, and then meet the needs of the fire service, of the training academy that is making the investment in that tool. So this rubric is designed to not only be used by the academies to help frame their curriculum, as I described, over the life, I shouldn't say life, the career of the firefighter, but it's also to be that platform for a conversation with the technology developer to be able to understand what you're trying to achieve through this investment. So we asked our sponsors to join us because we're talking about a product that is part of our research outcomes that we believe is as critical for the folks who are trying to deliver training products for the fire service, especially if they integrate technology. This tool is going to be as important for those folks as it is for the training academies when they develop curriculum. So that's part one, the rubrics. Part two, Casey, you want to give an overview of next?
Sure. Part two, and at some point we'll get into the slides, I guess, will be on the conformity assessment framework. We sometimes call it CAF, not to be confused with compressed air foam. But that framework is meant to be how you apply these tools and to provide the key things you need to, for instance, write product specifications, whether it's individual or organizationally, so that the vendors of products and programs will know what they're driving towards, and we can have interoperable and compatible products and programs that you can do large-scale drills and do what you need to do that we should be able to do today, and we cannot. So part of what we're trying to provide here are the tools to drive that forward and to make that happen.
This conformity assessment framework, and it's just that, it's a framework, but it gets its basis from work that was done by the National Institute of Standards and Technology in defining what is a conformity assessment framework. It's not a standard, it's not a certification, it's not a credential, it's not a validation. It's a framework that describes some
Well, the illities are one part of the framework.
The illities are a big part of this framework, and we're going to talk about the illities. And the illities get their basis from a document Casey was the lead editor on.
Yeah, which is in slide 3.
I know, but let's keep the talking going, just as an
we
overview.
are the caboose here today.
Yeah, no, just to get their attention.
Sure. But yes, the research roadmap for smart firefighting, and it's a key. I mean, here we are, 10 years later. It was published in 2015. I was the editor-in-chief and the program manager for the research roadmap for smart firefighting. And it's NIST publication 1191. You can easily Google it and look at it. NIST being National Institute of Standards and Technology, equivalent of NRC, National Research Council here in Canada. Work with them a lot too. But that roadmap, we can see where we've come today. We've come a long, long way since 2015, even with this thing that's in all of our pockets and that we use as a portal into a whole nother world of stuff. And so there's a lot going on. But this is where we see the applications for fire service training as we march down this road. And before I mention how unique you are in fire service training, because there was really one and a very unique part of that, I just want to say the research roadmap, it had over 24 authors in all those chapters. And with them, we paired a fire service person, whether they were a fire chief or whatever, with a tech person. And we had people from Google, Microsoft, Apple, Oracle. I mean, it was a parade of these tech providers who were basically just saying, how can we help you? You know, firefighters dying, that's not a good thing. Or people dying in fires, that's not a good thing. What can we do? How do we do this? And they had products and all kinds of things, but guess what they need? They need the user community to tell them what they need and how they need it, the way they need it, and nothing more. So that's what they want. And that's what this whole project is all about, trying to build that bridge, get us all marching down the same parade. Now, I do want to just add here, the fire service training community is different among the rest of the fire service because we're back to you train in big numbers. And it's like you do want to do large-scale drills. You can't just have one-on-one training. You should be able to use your driving simulators with your next door fire department or your next state or whatever. And we can't do that. So this is one of the challenges that we're trying to work our way through here. And that's why all of you who have products and programs, you're a very important part of this as well.
The reason I provided this overview, and it'll help us with the slides, I want our NAFTE community to understand your brand on this product, this project, reflects taking existing research, existing practices, it's not anything that's new, bringing it into this era today and adopting it to provide tools that we believe can make your job easier and also to enable the use of immersive learning technologies to benefit your fire service students. Understand the NAFTE brand here is standing for research, Brittany's research, Michelle's research, Casey's research. So when you see the NAFTE brand on these types of activities, please think of it proudly. There's an awful lot of research and data analysis and science that is driving this project. So as you hear the discussion and you say to yourself, where the hell did they pull that out of? We found it in research. We found it in the data. We found it in the science. So with that, let's see what we can do with the slides, Casey.
And without further ado,
Except it's not working.
oh, well, here we go. We covered the first several anyway, Ken.
Yeah. So,
Do you want me to push the button while you go push other buttons?
okay, I think
Jim's got it.
Jim's going to try and fix it.
We will.
Yeah. So, and just to recap this, because I know a number of people came in. So what we are presenting here, a lot of this is concept oriented, but we're going to go deep into the rubrics.
Give it a try now.
And into the conformity assessment framework, and really give you the lay of the landscape. This presentation will be available. One thing I do want to add is we're working to complete the report. This will all be in a final report that we hope to have out, I guess, this fall.
Yeah.
Sometime. So.
And Brad, let's see how our technology is. Brad is sharing a page with the QR code that will bring you to one of the rubrics we developed if you want to download it. We also shared a QR code so you can download our presentation.
There you go.
So, I talked about file before, now we're at train. We started with file, now we're at train. So, what this is we're trying to bring together what we learned from the file project to the train project, but more importantly, our goal was to come up with a tool to hand off to the training director community to make it easier for them to take advantage of immersive learning technologies. Casey talked about this. This is his little talk.
Yeah, and there's not much to add here, except that's a picture of the cover of the research roadmap. And again, anybody can download that at any time. In a way, it's really set a cornerstone for the entire fire service on where we hope to go and where we're going. I do want to say a number of speakers have already been touching on things that we clearly were addressing here. Tom Jenkins with Nearest, you know, that's a whole chapter in here on and addressed. Shane Ray was addressing it with and it's one of our 10 scenario examples, was the high challenge warehouse and the fire pump people, to give them an app so that when they got there, they could tell, is this fire steady state or what's going on in there? And they can easily see that on the app. And that's what we wanted, and they provide that today. So all of this stuff is transitioning in. Much of it's in pockets and pieces. But, you know, here we are in the training environment. It's like, we want to move the needle here. We want to move this forward and really try to give you the tools so that you can do what you need here to have effective and efficient training.
So we're going to talk about the rubric right now, and on this page with the slides, you can see there's some different immersive learning experiences there. There's a emergency vehicle operation simulator, there's a pump panel simulation, there's Lisa, where's Lisa? At an incident command simulator. Lisa, thank you very much. Then we have somebody inside a burn building with a propane fire and some additional smoke, that's immersive. But we also have firefighters at Utah doing a bailout drill out of a wooden prop with a window. That's immersive as well. So the rubric. The idea of the rubric was not new to the fire service. It came from other aligned career professions and industries. And the basis for this came from one that was designed primarily for parallel medical professions and nursing in particular. And it relies on what's called the Dreyfus model of expertise with the integration of the Bloom's taxonomy, which is language that we know from the JPRs. And the way it was designed for the medical field, as you can see, whoop, wrong button, Ken. You can see across the top that you had a category. The novice doesn't yet see the picture. The advanced beginner sees part of the picture. Competent sees the basic picture. Proficient sees the big picture. And expert anticipates the changing picture. And then they would go down and they would use some of Bloom's taxonomy to use verbiage to how do you make those differentiations. Performs assessment with guidance and prompts. Distinguishes between abnormal and normal. Recognizes change in condition. Classifies relative importance. And relates ongoing finding. And then on the left column, coming down, the category of where the skill was in their system, patient assessment, history gathering, patient teaching. How could that help the fire service?
And these are single page documents that are actually spread over 2 pages. And Ken, I know you're getting into the details here, and I know that's hard to read the screen, but you can just clearly download that.
Yeah, we've given you the QR code, so you'll be able to see ours. So how did we build the rubric? So the rubrics are divided into several key parts. Along the top, we have the training continuum. So the training continuum at a high level is training academy, training division oriented, which is columns A, B, and C. And typically, we believe that would be training a novice, which is a student entering with no prior experience, an advanced beginner, a student undergoing Recruit Firefighter 1 training, competent, completion of Recruit Firefighter 1 training, proficient, so that's beyond Firefighter 1, and expert. And that represents, again, that learning journey throughout the firefighter's career. The service delivery is often not factored into training current assessment frameworks. And the service delivery on this D and E, which is proficient and expert, typically is department oriented. It's after they've completed at the academy, and it's very often done with the department sponsoring the individual. But we wanted to include that because we know there are many academies that are teaching executive fire officer 3 and 4, and higher levels. So we thought it was appropriate to include them. Then as we get further into the rubric, we had that left-hand column, and along the left-hand side are the categories, or we refer to them as dimensions. These are derived from NFPA standards and JPRs. They represent core skills needed to be successful, and they're grouped into 3 large buckets: procedural, cognitive, and interpersonal. So you can see under this example, the category or dimension in this row for fixed systems, NFPA 1010-1137, it's identifying a specific JPR, and that's 11.3.7. The middle of the rubric maintains the core skills divided by what we would expect students at each level to achieve ranging from novice to competent to expert. So we start with the category or the dimension, fixed systems, NFPA 1010, 11.3.7. It is a procedural or operational grouping. If we look the novice to the advanced beginner, struggles to operate major equipment attached to the apparatus, for example, electrical scene lighting and such, struggles to monitor for problems. When you move on to competent, successfully operates. Now, we've had some feedback from our most recent summit about the term struggles. And Kate Kapalo, with the pump operations rubric, field tested it at Illinois Fire Service Institute and watched it in application as they were testing students' skills on their pump simulator, applying the rubrics at that time. And they went through several evolutions. And the question of struggles, and to some, struggles, how do you define struggles? How do you know what struggles is? It's not prescriptive, it's a sense. The feedback from the staff at Illinois Fire Service Institute is, we know struggles. We know struggles. Maybe we can't define it, but we know struggles. So you may see some terms here that are not as black and white, concrete, if you will, as you might be used to with some other testing and validation processes. Perhaps a little more. Remember, this is a draft, so we're looking for feedback, and we're certainly open to conversation, but you will see terms like struggles used.
And Ken, if I can add here, because we've got a ton of feedback on this, and we've really been trying to incorporate this in. But this is where, in the beginning, we said we're trying to bridge between multiple, arguably different thinking groups here, because clearly administrators, instructors, you all see this and you apply it. It's where you live. Well, we're back to the people who provide the products and the programs, and they want. It's like, tell us, what do you need, and we're trying to tell them what we need. So this is part of the key thing of giving some structure to this conceptually, that all the vendors and others can work towards and provide you with what you're seeking.
This is the pump panel simulator rubric that was field tested out at Illinois Fire Service Institute. And there's the QR code that has been circulated, so we encourage you to use the QR code to download it and check it out. But to Casey's point, if you're a training director and you're having a conversation with a developer of a pump simulator and you want to have a conversation about your needs, you could say, I want to be able to assess the competency of a competent firefighter across this level of skills demonstrating these behaviors. The question to the developer of that pump simulator is, oh no, we don't do that. We're just here. You just pull a lever and you get a dial. Or, well, we can do that, but it's going to require X. That's a conversation. Well, what is X? How much does X cost? How will it work? So it's to help the two parties come together and have that conversation. So how does this fit in with our current training needs? It shows the connection between JPRs and training outcomes. We were purposeful in using Bloom's taxonomy and the JPRs because that is really a fundamental tool that the training system, our training ecosystem currently uses. So rather than introduce new terminology, we chose to stay with that. But it also does not rely solely on subjective instructor input. It allows for some performance criteria to say did or did not do, and either you did or you didn't do it. I mean, that's pretty objective. So we feel that it's going to be a complement to what is there already. So I'm going to move through this because I think we've kind of covered this, Casey.
Yeah.
It is the end of the day, Ken.
I understand.
Somewhere up here there's a trap door.
Casey, you're on.
Well, yeah, so this is a key slide, and this is honestly, we got quite a bit of feedback after the summit in May. Thank you very much, all of you who provided that. including written comments after that were really informative and helpful. But you can see in this slide, so this is something that we realized after the summit and after going over the rubrics with all the attendees and the extensive feedback. But the rubrics superimposed on the top level there, those 5 columns. And I do want to just say, we had some really important feedback from people saying, well, wait a minute, columns A and B, yeah, that's, people coming in and getting, new candidates, et cetera. But there's plenty of firefighters who never go beyond column C. I mean, they're fully competent, and that's their career path, and that's where they're happy, and it works out well, and they do a great job. But what's going on in columns D and E? And this is where that maturity continuum is superimposed here in the middle part of this, the middle layer, where A and B have the dependent students, rookies, et cetera, but in the middle, where you get the competent, is the independent students. But then, what's going on out there? Well, that's where we're looking at instructors and leaders and officers and whatever, and the interdependent students. And all of this, there was a lot that was provided to us on the whole narrative and the storytelling and how important it is as an underpinning for all this, that we heard, that needs to be sort of woven into the background of this as well. So that's where we're at. We have the rubrics, but if you can go to the next slide, Ken. I do want to point out, it was very interesting because we had one of our breakout groups was really focused on sort of evaluation criteria and did a deeper dive on that. But the other groups were more, giving us the feedback that's like, no, wait a minute. This is a really helpful, important baseline. We got to clarify what it is, the context of how we want to use this and where it should be used. And that was part of why we're explaining having the vendors in the room is important here because they need to be part of this as well. But one of the interesting thoughts that was thrown out was, let's create the rubric cube, which was, how clever. And, but the rubric cube concept is we can add support layers here. There can be interpretive guidance, can be a support layer. There can be actual storytelling, the narratives in each of the cells in a support layer. And you could just go on and on. I mean, maybe if we don't want to have evaluation criteria. But there was a strong push to move forward with the baseline concept. And that's where, so we, cleaned things up and created new subcategory rows and so forth. But basically still using that primary baseline layer of the rubric. And if there ever is a rubric cube, we salute that. It makes a lot of sense.
So rubrics are not checklists. A checklist is pretty simple. They're designed to be more robust than a checklist. They're designed to give guidance, but they're also flexible enough to allow the AHJ to have input in defining what the expectation is. I think the big key is identifying where is the firefighter student learner on their learning pathway, and what do you expect the technology provider to give you as a finished product to measure that. It's not a grading sheet. It's not to be used as a grading sheet. It's meant to tell training directors what to do, it's not meant to tell you what to do. It's meant to be a tool in your toolbox as you have other tools.
So now we're going to go in the conformity assessment framework, and I guess so I can just start clicking buttons.
You can.
Like mad, right?
Yeah, maybe a whiplash.
So we'll use a little giddy up here because some of this information you've seen before, but I just want to pause on this. And actually, we're changing the titles of some of these sections, so I don't want to dwell on this too long. But I will tell you, there's a key third layer here of things we want to talk about. And these are just simply represented with the number in the corner. So we presented the conformity assessment framework, which are multiple sub-pieces to help you move through this stuff and to make decisions. There's prompts, there's decision trees, etc. But it's to really try to aid you as you go through and address the immersive learning technologies. So the beginning part is a little bit of a recap and background. I'll cover those quickly. And then there's some things we've added down here that are the supporting elements. So that's what I really want to talk about. And let's just march through this. And so just going right to this background, this is the SWOT analysis. We generated this with the file project previously. So you're just seeing it again. But it's really helpful and it's really useful in saying, look, all the participants in this relatively complex setting, this is all the feedback that we got, and we were able to map it out. This has been quite helpful for us to really get an idea of where people are coming from. And, you know, and we really try to incorporate some of the things we saw, like with students. You know, one of the things that they said, make it fun and we'll remember. Make it so we'll remember it. And, you know, and they had different ways of absorbing that was going over our head initially. So anyway, you've seen it before. I want to keep moving on. The Da Vinci Man. Behold, the Da Vinci Man. It's superimposed in the background there, Leonardo da Vinci's figure. But we recognize that this is a very important illustration because this shows the ecosystem of the fire service training environment. And it shows here in the sort of the head and the thinking part, the conformity assessment framework, along with the rubric and the other ILT tools. But we have the torso, the heart, and all the key organs. This is where it's all happening, you know, and it's, even though it's guided by the above, you know, these are the academies, the students, the instructors, all those involved. But what's going on here? Standing on the foundation of the learning outcomes. This is ultimately what's critical here. This is your foundation, and this is where everything matters in terms of results. You know, are we really providing impactful, relevant, accurate, meaningful training? And so how do we know? But the other thing you see outside of this circle is there's these groups out here, the technology and the program providers. Well, they're an important part of this, and they're out there and they want to be part of this, and how can we work with them? And I do want to say, you know, that's where this interaction is with our technology providers and program providers. But key to this, and I believe Tom Jenkins mentioned it yesterday, and we used to talk about it a lot, data is the new oil. And if you want to go look at the capital investment pages and so forth, you know, the tech companies dwarf everybody else. Oil companies, everybody. They are gigantic. And I mean, that's where our world is today. Data is the new oil. And I'm just going to tell you, this data exchange is going to become a key part of when you start really trying to push for products that can be interoperable. And you can do driver training at IFSI at the same time with MIFRE and TEACS or whoever. I mean, you can just all do it because we should be able to do that. We can't. So that's our Da Vinci Man. It's still very valid, but let me move on. This is a complex slide. I don't want to get into it. It's in the report. It's in the slides. You can look at it. But this is the overview of the process. So that's why it's got the little stars around the number 3, because this is kind of the key platform for trying to do all this. So this is sort of a main point here. But I don't want to get into the details. There's a lot going on here. And we did talk about it quite a bit back in May of this year. So let's just keep moving on. And I want to talk now about where we heard the most feedback from all the groups at the May Summit was on the ILITs, as we call them. Now the ILITs, just a bit of background here and where this came from. This material here, this is directly, that's an illustration in chapter 14, I believe, of the research roadmap for smart firefighting. But that wasn't the origin of it. We generated this with the NIST project for the NFPA Electronic Safety Equipment Committee, and it had to do with thermal imaging cameras that when they first came out, if you recall, they were really expensive, they were really hard to get, they would melt in fires, they had all kinds of problems. And it's sort of like, whoa, 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 whoa. You got to do, if this is ever going to succeed, you got to meet the ilities as they've come to be known, the performance characteristics. They have to be available, and that means they're not too expensive, they're affordable, etc. They have to be durable, they have to be maintainable, they have to be stable, they have to be reliable, they have to be operable. All of that matters. So we went over this in detail at the summit in May, and we got really good feedback. This is the one thing that we got more than anything else. So let me march you through how we got this. This is a complex slide. It's going to be in the report. I don't want to get into it as much as to say the blue here are the existing ilities, and these were all the new ones that everybody said, oh, we got to have something that tells us what's going on with retainability of the students and so forth. Now, a really key point arose out of this, and you'll see it in the slide after this one. Let me keep going. So that's all the new ilities are the black ones, and the blue are the primary ones that we had before. So what's happened here? This is complex. Don't look at this. You can look at it in the report, but we give you examples of what we're thinking we meant here with just case study examples. So that will be in the report, and you'll have that. But let me march you through here. And now this is this key point on the ilities. We heard it's not just about products. In the training environment, products, technology, it's joined at the hip with the programs. And if you don't have success on both your program and your product, you're going to probably not succeed here. And it will fail. So this, again, for technology providers and program providers, this is important for you as much as for administrators, directors, instructors, and so forth. So we outline here, and this is what I'm starting to show, and this is in layers, because this does become a complex illustration. But we'll show all the ilities, but it's focused towards both products and programs now. And here's our conventional, original ilities, and we just pop them in, so those are the ones that were in the original research roadmap. And then it's like, well, wait a minute, this is all the new stuff that we heard is really important for the training environment. And when we fill it in, this is what the new illustration looks like. Now, what do you do with this? I'm going to tell you, every time you write a product specification and you're trying to purchase equipment or whatever, you should be referring to this. And you should make sure you're just checking the boxes that conceptually you're meeting what you're trying to do. So let me carry that a step further. So these are the ilities, and it's a tool for you to use. Now, I'm going to completely switch gears, and this is an entire new section in our report, and it's on the one ility of operability. Why? I told you earlier, the training environment is different. Training, you're trying to reach, at times, large numbers. Well, we hear it all the time. Firefighting is a team sport, right? You want to do a drill not only with one person on driver training, but you want to do a drill with the entire fire department, all the fire departments in mutual aid district, perhaps in your entire state. Whatever's going on, do a WUI drill. I mean, the military does this and we cannot. Why? So this is an important thing that we're trying to drive the needle on, and it's on this operability, which includes interoperability, compatibility, and repeatability. So those are key metrics for moving this along. And we created a separate illustration for this, which just shows it in a little bit more visual manner, but it's the same thing. Repeatability, we want to do this. It's got to repeat safely, it's got to repeat ethically, it's got to repeat effectively, and it's got to repeat efficiently. And we got to have interoperable. Interoperable means it's got to work one with another. Compatible means it's not going to step on it. And this was a big problem with early Wi-Fi and so forth, where somebody came along with something and nothing else worked, and it's like, whoa, that's no good. So we got to get this. And why do we need this? Because you should be able to do, for instance, these are examples here, multiple driver simulators in a dense urban environment. Why can't you do that with your academy and your academy and your academy and your academy, and just agree that at noontime, mountain time, we're going to do this on this day. And, you know, you do it. But we cannot do that today. And this is problematic when we talk about large-scale drills and so forth. So multiple driving simulators, multiple pump handle simulators, maybe more specific fire department or region centric, but it's like, wait a minute, what's going on here when you got a lot of this happening at the same time? This is the more realistic fire ground, you know, not a one-on-one necessarily. So, and we're back to just doing scenario-based drills. Now, the one key thing I do want to say about scenario-based drills, this is a huge driver for the technology people. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with the DARPA challenge. DARPA, and I know Michelle worked a lot with DARPA and other groups, but DARPA had their robotics challenge, and all they were trying to do was get a humanoid robot to go in and turn valves like they needed to have done at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant in Japan to turn some of those valves in the, you know, the radioactive areas, among other needs, of course. But it was very effective at pushing the humanoid robot providers, you know, in a direction with the DARPA challenge. Now, I don't know that you can, NAFTI, necessarily do it something like that where there's a prize of something, but it's a proof of concept. And it's like, you have the ability to push drills and say, we want to do this, and you got to provide it for us, and we want to see what you've got to do that. So that's a tool for you. So now, just to wrap this up, I want to say, in the report, we'll provide, and thank you very much, Michelle Royal, for mentioning the DHS document. Preet Bassi is not here with the CPSC document, but even NFPA 950, and I'll specifically go right to Chapter 6 on data exchange, you need to use that. And, you know, NAFTI and other groups need to lead the way and say, hey, you're going to provide these products for us. You've got to have data exchange. You've got to have application programming interfaces, APIs, that are going to allow the data to go back and forth and so forth. So we're going to provide all that. Now, these are very complex slides, and I'm going to just wrap up quickly. I don't want you to read these, but these are going to be in the report. This is a call to arms for individual training academies and fire departments and others who are going to buy equipment. Strategies for individual fire department and fire academies in terms of buying equipment and pushing this concept. And so we're spelling it out. Prioritize interoperability in the purchasing decisions, insist on transparent documentation, engage in vendor partnerships, leave reviews and feedback. So individually you can do some things, but importantly, organizationally, you have some leverage here. And NAFTI and Metro Chiefs and all the other groups out there, you need to, you know, step back and really try to push some of these concepts to try to move the vendors. And I do want to say for the vendors, depending on what you're doing, some things are straightforward and are more one-on-one oriented, but some things are not. And that's where, you know, we want to drive that in that direction and move that forward. Ken's looking at me like there's a trapdoor lever here. And
Not at all, Casey.
okay. Well, here, I think we're back to,
The call to action.
yeah.
So we just expose you to an awful lot of information. As Casey said, it'll be in the final report. It's to whet your appetite. It's to let you know that it's coming. And also to encourage you to start thinking at your level, are these tools going to help you? Are they going to help you develop curriculum? Are they going to help you assess what you need from an immersive learning tool? Start talking to the developers. Start building that relationship. Start seeing what your fellow NAFTI members are doing in this space and what can you learn from them and how can you collaborate on it. So our call to action is, and we have a Mentimeter set up, and if you're familiar with that, you access the Mentimeter on your phone, and Brad, if you would, you can either take the QR code on the screen or from the sheet that Brad is handing out.
And there's 8 questions here in this Mentimeter, but we can all see the results live. And so we do want you all to participate. We'll pull up, now we don't expect you to read the questions here necessarily because you're going to see it on your device. And the QR codes are still down in the bottom here. But these are we have 2 slides with the 8 questions. And
Yeah. So the first question, if we were to integrate the rubrics into an NFPA document, where do you see them adding the most value? Second question, do you see NAFTE as the official custodian of the rubric? This is just to get to the sense, do you see NAFTE having a role in supporting this rollout? Then, if not NAFTE, which organization? And based on what you saw today, how likely is your academy to adopt this rubric? And you could use the word utilize, adopt/utilize this rubric in the next 2 years. So that's the first 4 questions.
those are the first 4, but I do want to say 3 people have already responded.
Yeah.
And then when you get to the end, I'm just simply at the end, you can see the responses. So we do want you to respond. Please do.
So we'll give you a minute. And Casey will be monitoring it live. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, 19.
19?
Hold on. 27. How many people are in the room?
More than 27, but that's still a good number.
Yeah, so
Is that on the first question?
it was 27 in the first and the second. That's as far as I.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Yes. Keep it coming. We feel the love. Put your beanies on if you believe.
Took.
Duke. Somebody yesterday, when I called it a toque in the back from Canada, said it's a beanie.
Do you want to go on to the?
I will.
Explain the next 8 questions and.
So, question 5. What would be the 2 biggest factors influencing adoption at your academy? That's a free text response. Question 6. Are we missing any factors influencing adoption? And that's a free text response. Question 7. What guidance would you give technology or curriculum developers to? And question 8. Name one technology or use case scenario you think would best support implementation of the rubrics. So we're asking you to be creative and to use, we're not just giving you a yes or no or fill in the blank, because we want to know what you're thinking. This is what guides us, and as Casey illustrated, the comments we generated through the summit, through the focus groups, through the surveys, has informed everything we've done to date. So this work today will also inform as we prepare the final report.
So people are working on the later questions,
Sure.
But there's no change to the beginning.
Okay.
I'll ask you this question. I'm a little bit fearful of asking with the technology difficulties, but are we able to pull this up on the?
I don't want to try because I'm
Okay.
afraid I'll lose something.
Okay. But we can just repeat some of it if you want to go back to the first 4. I mean, it's a little bit hard to see, but on the handheld. So that first question was, if we were to integrate the rubrics on NFPA documents, where do you see them adding the most value? And the predominant answer appears to be in the annex.
In the annex, where it's not mandatory, but it's informative. Followed by in the body of the document, followed by not sure. So that was question 2. Question 3.
Well, wait a minute. Question 1 up here.
Oh, that was question 1
Yeah.
up there, yes.
Question 2 is, do you see NAFTE as the official custodian of the rubric?
22 of you said yes, 3 said no, and 6 said unsure.
Okay. Number 3 was, if not NAFTE, which organization or partnership would you recommend as a custodian? And that's where there were a lot of answers there.
Yeah, NFPA. Need some more clarification. ISV, which is the Instructors Association. A couple of NAFTE, a couple of NFPA. All right, so we had a good range there.
Okay, question 4 was based on what you saw today, how likely is your academy to adopt the rubric within the next 2 years?
And 5 said most likely, 21 said somewhat likely, and 1 said nah, not at all. And that's great information for us, so thank you.
You need to advance the slide.
And what are the 2 biggest factors influencing adoption at your academy? And this was all free text, so there's obviously many answers. But I'll just take the 3. Consistency, ease of use. You value repeatability and buy-in from stakeholders. But there were many responses. I just picked 3.
The next question was, are we missing any factors influencing adoption in your academy or your state? And if so, what are they?
Several of you said no, thank you. We appreciate that vote of confidence. There was explanation of benefits, and then integration with Pro Board and IFSAC. And there were some other comments beyond that as well.
Okay, and number 7 was, what guidance would you give technology curriculum developers to ensure the rubric integrates smoothly with your academy platforms like LMS,
Yep.
ARF, AR, etc.?
Common language. Start with the primary textbook companies to be sure that they're on board. Involve academy staff in the development. Align the capabilities with the rubric. Ask them to provide how their tool matches the rubrics. And we would suggest that's a great use of that data.
Yep. The final question here is, name one technology or use case scenario you think could best support implementation.
And this appears on your phone when you view the results as a word cloud. So it's got command, air monitoring, driving training simulator, connectivity, a flame system, meaning an immersive learning structural firefighting tool, micro-learning based videos, and command simulation. So those were the answers that show up on the word cloud right now.
So Ken, I want to point out for everyone, I don't wear a wristwatch. I use my phone. Ken's got it, so I don't know what time it is. But
I wear a wristwatch.
So I'm going to defer to you on where we stand in terms of having further discussion or questions or whatever.
Sure, so what I'd like to do is just close with the call to action. Casey, here's your phone so you can tell what time it is. That we address those questions. Thank you for your feedback. We are going to collect that feedback. It is going to inform our final report, so thank you. A lot of information, a lot of concept, but we are working to take the concept and put it into a physical tool that will bridge that gap. The important part, start the conversation with the technology folks today, and to the technology folks, you heard some of the things we think should be doable, that multiple simulators connected to be able to do simultaneous drills over a large area. There's a need for that, especially if you think about the learning continuum, when you get to the higher level of skill, especially when you think about Brittany's report on what the volunteer fire service said they want from training. They want training that's good, they want training that's quick, and they want training that's real world and reflective of what they can expect. So all of these things are converging, and we're hoping we're enabling that conversation to develop the tools to achieve those objectives. Are there any quick questions?
And I do want to just make a comment as well. We've started from the very beginning talking about how important the dialogue is with those who are providing the technology and the programs. But the end users, your voice really matters here, and how this gets applied and used. But we just want to make sure as we're going forward that there's the proper dialogue going back and forth between NAFTE and other groups and all of you here and all of you who want to do something for the fire service training environment. So, that's been a key focus for us.
And Jim has something.
Kate wants me to share. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you all being willing to share your input. It means a lot to us as a project team. I'm so sorry I couldn't be there in person, but feel free to reach out to us if you want to discuss anything further. We are so open to hearing from you because you all are important stakeholders. We need your voice. And I thought that was a great comment.
All right. And on that, I'll thank you for your attention. I'll say that today's NAFTE Conference Day 2 is done.